When K2 points out that indeed Cassian's gun was configured as a sniper rifle, Jyn goes running after them. Krennic's shuttle arrives, Galen being brought out to greet him while Cassian sets up his rifle. He takes aim, but then has an image of Jyn in his head and hesitates. Although Krennic does not, shooting down the rest of Galen's team. Seems like a really stupid and pointless gesture, especially since he doesn't kill Galen, but just slaps him around a bit, but what do I know?
How do I know the weapon is complete? Let me share with you some details. Jeddah, Saw Gerrera, his band of fanatics, their holy city, the last remainder of the Jedi. Gone!
You'd think Sidious would have already ordered all the Jedi stuff destroyed by this point. This has changed around quite a bit from how it ended up in the movie, where Galen actually tried to sacrifice himself to keep Krennic from killing the other scientists while looking for the traitor, and him killing them anyway because he's the bad guy and an idiot. In addition, there's a sequence in the comic where Baze actually wants to try to shoot at them from his own vantage point for vengeance, but Sherrod encourages him not to. Instead, to follow Jyn's lead because she shines, which is unfortunately kind of bad for a secret commando squadron. The X-Wing Squadron attacks, knocking out Galen and Krennic. The comic once again includes flashback bits, this time of Krennic and Galen's relationship over the years. I guess it's to show that the two once had a time when they were friends and colleagues, but it's not really necessary for the story. The Death Troopers wake Krennic up and take him away, and the comic includes a scene that definitely should have been in the movie. Cassian had sent Bodhi back to the ship, but now he and K2 are on their way up to steal an Imperial shuttle for them, with Bodhi wanting to lead the way. K2 is annoyed because he's slower, but Bodhi says he needs K2 to trust him. You are asking for a great deal of trust. I really don't know you, Bodhi Rook.
You say you don't know me. We're the same. We've both got the Imperial symbol on us.
We both got drunk that one time and had it tattooed on our butts.
And yet we're both here anyway, all to help the rebellion. Cassian reprogrammed you, right? Well, Galen Erso reprogrammed me. We can still finish this mission. We can steal a shuttle and get the information back to the rebellion. But you have to let me lead the way.
Bodhi's character development was very subtle in the movie, probably a little too much so. This would have been a good addition and made a cool connection with K2. Jyn goes over to Galen, who's sadly dying. He reiterates how the Death Star needs to be destroyed.
I have so much to tell you.
First of all, invest in Imperial construction stocks. They're gonna go way up soon. He dies as Cassian pulls her away, the two soon getting picked up by the rest of our heroes. As they fly off, Jyn is pissed at Cassian because he lied about what their mission was. We get some good back and forth, with Cassian pointing out he chose to disobey the orders to kill him, but Jyn is incensed because it was still the Rebel Alliance who killed him. Cassian does hit the nail on the head though, especially in regards to her earlier comment about not looking up at the Imperial flag.
We don't all have the luxury of deciding when and where we want to care about something. Suddenly the rebellion is real for you? Some of us live this. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. You're not the only one who lost everything. Some of us just decided to do something about it.
Once again, though, I feel like Felicity Jones is underplaying it too much. She's supposed to be outraged and furious, but her expression remains the same stone-faced seriousness she's had the entire time. I want to emphasize this. It's not that her acting is bad. We've seen bad acting and line delivery in a Star Wars prequel.
You're so beautiful.
I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Her decision to play it like this is a legit acting choice, and there is a certain logic to it as someone beaten down and broken over the years, but as a result, I don't feel like it has the impact it should have if she were pushing it more. Speaking of our old buddy Anakin, we cut to Mustafar. Krennic has been summoned there by Captain Crispy himself. Krennic tells Vader he wants an audience with the Emperor. It's not clear if he's just power hungry, wanting to schmooze with Palpatine, or if it's more professional pride. He spent a good chunk of his life on the Death Star after all. In keeping with his characterization in A New Hope, Vader is not particularly impressed with the thing.
Its power to create problems has certainly been confirmed. A city destroyed, an Imperial facility openly attacked. And have you seen the property taxes on this thing? We own it. It literally belongs to the government, and we still have to pay for it. That's how expensive it is.
It was Governor Tarkin that suggested the test.
You were not summoned here to grovel, Director Krennic. You were summoned here for fan service.
He tells them that officially the Death Star does not exist. The story to the Senate is that Jedha was destroyed in a mining disaster, and that he's being charged with ensuring that the weapon hasn't been compromised in some way by Galen. Vader starts walking off. So I'm still in command. You'll speak to the Emperor about... And Vader starts choking him.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director.
Darth Vader, Sass Master of the Sith. Like I joked, this scene is fan service. It's fan service I can get behind, though, since it's always fun to see James Earl Jones doing his Vader. You can tell in one or two lines he's aged a bit, though, and it ends up affecting his performance.
A city destroyed. An Imperial facility openly attacked?
This scene, I think, illustrates why I believe some of us have a disconnect when it comes to Anakin in the prequels. Some said I just don't get Anakin's character, that his problem is that he cares too much about people and can't accept their deaths. As a result, those commenters disagree when I suggested that Anakin should be the one who doesn't care about the clone troopers. Except he's also the same guy who will casually choke people who annoy him and choke them to death if they fail him. And that's the problem. I don't think Revenge of the Sith does a good enough job explaining how we get from, I'm gonna go help the clones, to, shut up, Krennic, or I'll pop your head off like a Barbie doll. And you can say, well, that's because they're two different people, from a certain point of view. But it doesn't feel narratively satisfying is all. I just feel like there were better ways of gradually making the changeover. But yeah, this scene, despite not really having much point other than fan service, is enjoyable. As for the other Vader fan service bit, we'll get to that. By the by, how hardcore is Vader? This is the place where he lost the rest of his limbs, almost burned to death, fought his best friend, supposedly killed his wife, and he still sets up a huge-ass castle here for himself. We cut over to Yavin 4, where the full Rebel Alliance leadership is arguing about what to do now that they know the Death Star exists. Things go a bit differently in the comic rather than the movie, where Mon Mothma goes to talk to Jyn, who's waiting outside the base. She offers her apology to Jyn about how they took so much from her. It's definitely a bit that should have stayed, since it helps inspire Jyn to go into the meeting to argue on behalf of fighting the Death Star. If the Empire has this kind of power, what chance do we have? What chance do we have? The question is, what choice? You want to run? Hide? Plead for mercy? Scatter your forces? You give way to an enemy this evil with this much power, and you condemn the galaxy to an eternity of submission. I mean, it's not like some farm boy is just gonna show up and save the galaxy. Send your best troops to Scarif. Send the whole rebel fleet if you have to. We need to capture the Death Star plans if there is any hope of destroying it. You're asking us to invade an Imperial installation based on nothing but hope. Rebellions are built on hope. And on the financial backings of several governments, if you want to be cynical about it. Ultimately, because the full council won't support the act, they won't approve the mission. Jyn walks out with Bodhi, though Chirrut and Baze say they're with her if they want to try to go anyway. Fortunately, it won't just be the four of them. Cassian has gathered up a group of volunteers to assist. Cassian's character development comes in here, and once again aided by the flashback panels. How he and these volunteers have done terrible, immoral things for the rebellion before because they thought it was for a cause they believed in. And if the fight ends here with the Alliance scattering, then it will all have been for nothing. They grab what gear they can and take the Imperial shuttle they use to escape Edu. The shuttle takes off, with flight control asking what the hell they're doing and what their call sign is. Bodhi, in a rush, registers themselves as Rogue One. Title drop, but seems odd that it's just some offhand remark made in a panic and not like Mon Mothma sending them on a secret mission and giving them that call sign, or having been assigned it when they first left for Jeddah. Later, Admiral Raddus, a Mon Calamari like Admiral Akbar, is informed of the shuttle theft and figures out what they're doing, and as such, organizes a bunch of ships to provide support. This is a minor nitpick, but I think it was a mistake to give this role to someone introduced in this film. Spoilers, but this guy is gonna die to help save the mission, and it doesn't carry the emotional impact it should as a result. Personally, and I'm probably in the minority here, but I think it should have been Bail Organa who did this. There's a scene cut from the comic where he elects to go back to Alderaan to inform his people that there's going to be open war with the Empire. What's more, he's going to dispatch Leia to get Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding, since the time to fight back is now and they'll need his help. I don't mind that part, but the assumption is that he dies on Alderaan during the Death Star attack, and I feel like it would have had a stronger departure for the character if he died to get the Death Star plans to safety. The only problem with it is that we wouldn't have Leia dealing with it emotionally at the beginning of A New Hope like she should, but you could make it so that she doesn't know and just assumes he's on Alderaan at the time. In any case, there's a bit of character interaction with Chirrut and Baze that, yet again, was missing from the movie, where they explain they're on this mission because, as guardians of the Jedi Temple, they need to stop the desecration of the Kyber crystals and the use of the weapon. Now, if they'd only made them into a giant lightsaber instead. Scarif has a planetary shield and only one entranceway within, which you'd think would be the kind of technology they'd be employing on Coruscant as well, since it's like the capital world and all. And they're given clearance to land. Not included in the comic, but they give a convincing story about being redirected from Edu. Jyn explains the plan to the troops. Saw Gerrera used to say, "One fighter with a sharp stick and nothing left to lose can take the day." Which is good, because in our haste to leave, we only grabbed sharp sticks and no blasters. They have no idea we're coming. They have no reason to expect us. If we can make it to the ground, we'll take the next chance. And the next. On and on, until we win, or the chances are spent. Make sure you've pre-rolled all the ones out of your dice. Basically, it's a guerrilla action. Make 10 men seem like 100 by creating enough distractions and damage that they'll get the stormtroopers away from their target, the central tower where the Death Star plans are most likely kept. We get another moment with K2 and Bodhi, with our happy droid trying to encourage him as he becomes increasingly nervous about the entire thing. Again, it's a real shame character stuff like this was cut. Once they land, they knock out the Imperial guards who were sent to investigate their cargo and take their uniforms. Jyn, Cassian, and K2 head into the tower to begin their search. However, Krennic also soon arrives, wanting to figure out what it was that Galen had sent out in his message. I wonder if by the time the action starts, Krennic just assumes that Tarkin is doing this to him deliberately, since disaster seems to be following him to every place he goes today. Once inside, K2 interfaces with another Imperial droid and finds out the best route to the data vault. On their way, they tell the other rebels to light the place up. And light it up they do, blowing up a bunch of targets all across the island they're on. As stormtroopers are deployed to fight the attack, Tarkin is informed of what's happening on Scarif and orders the Death Star sent there. And inform Lord Vader. But sir! Yes, I know he has standing orders not to land on any planet with sand on it, but he can still observe from orbit. Our heroes reach the data vault and K2 is left to stand guard while Cassian and Jyn go into the vault itself. The comic doesn't really leave out the character development moment where Jyn gives him a gun, but just pushes it forward into the final issue of the miniseries and told in flashback, probably because they ran out of space to tell it in that particular issue. Still, no time for that, since the Empire has dispatched AT-ATs. And please, let's not have any arguments about pronouncing it AT-AT or AT-AT. Both are legitimate, just as much as it is to call an AT-ST a chicken walker. Admiral Radiss's fleet soon heads out to Scarif and engages the Imperial forces. Some of the X-Wings get through the defense shield before they close it, but not many, providing some air support to the forces on the ground. Back in the data vault, Jyn locates the Death Star plans under the file name Stardust, since that was Galen's nickname for her. Galen, I appreciate that you wanted to be cute, but if Jyn wasn't along on this trip, the rebellion would have been screwed. Also, cute bit in the movie not included in the comic. One of the things they mention seeing while looking through the files is hyperspace tracking, setting up what would pay off in The Last Jedi. Once again, takes 2 decades for Imperial forces to actually get stuff done. I guess this is what happens when you put all your funding into cyborg monster suits instead. Someone in the base must have realized the diversion, so stormtroopers soon arrive in the vault. K2 holds them off as long as he can, but eventually is shot dead, his final act sealing the vault to try to protect them. In the meantime, Bodhi works to set up a comlink on the ground to get the message out through the shield. Namely, that they have to take out the shield. The plans are too big to transfer this way. Another sign of Imperial inefficiency, they've got terrible network latency. Jyn and Cassian have to physically extract the hard drive or whatever containing the Death Star plans, but Krennic soon arrives with Death Troopers to deal with them. Meanwhile, everything's ready on Bodhi's end, but someone needs to flip a master switch to direct their comm activity through the communication tower. The rebels closest to it are pinned down, And so Chirrut decides to go and remind everyone of how awesome he is, walking out in the middle of the gunfire to get to the switch.
I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
Fortunately, the Force is letting him pass in peace. Inside the vault, Cassian gets shot down off of the massive server rack or whatever, and falls onto a platform, seemingly killed. Chirrut reaches the switch and turns it on, but he was right next to some fuel or something and gets blowed up. Well, he's definitely one with the Force now. He says his farewell to Baze as Bodhi makes contact with Admiral Raddus, telling him they need to bring down the shield. Unfortunately, he's next, as a grenade falls into the shuttle and blows him up too. Baze charges at some troopers, getting shot a few times in the process as he takes several of them down. Like his fellows, he also gets blown up. When you stop and think about it, this has been a wild day for these people. Jyn makes it to the top of the communications tower and prepares to transmit, though she's soon cornered by Krennic. She admits who she is to him and what she's doing, but Krennic is confident because the shield is still up. However, thanks to a Star Destroyer being disabled, a Rebel craft rams into it and uses its thrusters to force that destroyer into another, the two crashing into the shield generator and destroying it. Physics! A rarity in Star Wars! Krennic is soon shot from behind by Cassian, who's injured but alive. They successfully transmit the plans, and our heroes make their way down the tower. Well, hey! Happy ending for at least two of our main characters! So then the Death Star arrives. Tarkin, being a bastard, elects to destroy the entire base on Scarif. You know, the one that includes a bunch of loyal Imperialists, too. Admiral Raddus prepares to jump to hyperspace, but then Vader's Star Destroyer arrives and detects that their ship has received transmissions from the planet. Cassian and Jyn embrace as the blast of the Death Star's weapons soon consumes them. The rebels receive the plans and condense them down into a little USB drive, but then the boarding party arrives. The boarding party consisting of Darth Vader, who pursues the crew as they try to pass the plans through a door that's stuck. Oh man, it's that great scene where Darth Vader shows up and is all badass and kills all these troops, and we finally get to see how cool Darth Vader is as he uses the Force and swings his lightsaber around and deflects their blasts, and it's the best scene in the movie, and I hate this scene. You're of course free to like it, but I sure as hell don't. To me, it's the exact same problem as the prequel trilogy. It's more about looking cool than it is having any actual meaning. I don't need to see Darth Vader doing some elaborate lightsaber twirling and tossing guys around with telekinesis or crap like that. I've seen Darth Vader be scary impressive. It's when in Empire Strikes Back, he just holds out his hand as Han shoots at him and he doesn't move an inch. It's when he's toying with Luke and just casually having no difficulty in fighting him, making us fear for Luke's life as he's so thoroughly outmatched. It's when all these officers in the Empire are so frightened of him that they'd rather risk doing stupid things rather than question him. It's his imposing presence. It's him just being able to stand there and command the room. The more effort he expends in doing stuff like this, fancy pants twirling and movements, the less impressive he becomes because of how much extra effort is involved. If he can do all this, why does he need to go over closer to them to begin with? Close the door completely with the Force and swipe the data out of their hands. Choke them all at once. Hell, just for a continuity issue with this, if it's so damn easy for him to handle all these rebel troopers without any effort, why did a platoon of stormtroopers board Leia's ship in A New Hope? Why didn't he just step out and deal with it all himself? This isn't cool. It's turning on the character's God mode, and I hate it. I get why people find it cool. You're free to enjoy it as much as you like and disagree, but me personally, I just sigh in frustration at this blatantly unnecessary and lame fan service. Also, he turned off his own damn life support system, since otherwise we'd be able to see all the indicator lights on his chest unit blinking in the darkness. You know, I look at this scene where Vader brutally murders a bunch of terrified people who are trying to stop a weapon of mass destruction that kills on an almost inconceivable scale, and really what comes to mind is, Anakin Skywalker's problem was that he cared about people too much. I kid. I will give you this, though. Holy crap, it took 4 movies, but we finally get a scene of Vader demonstrating his super awesome mega powers that they wouldn't shut up about in the prequels. They get the plans onto the blockade runner ship seen in A New Hope, jumping to light speed. And so our comic, and the movie, ends with the plans being brought to Princess Leia. For some reason, the comic elected to not actually show her face, unlike the digital reconstruction they did from the movie. Although one final neat touch to end out the comic, it ends with the opening crawl of A New Hope. This comic is a bit better than the movie. Not by a lot, but it is better. The movie itself is decent, it's just not as spectacular as it could have been. The comic's main advantage, as I've said throughout, is that it includes a lot more of the character development that the movie lacked or just more subtly implied. The addition of the flashback panels was a great help and artistic choice, breaking up the talky bits more with visuals that told their own stories. The likenesses of the actors were reasonable for the most part, but Tarkin is sadly not done sufficient justice. The trade also includes a Cassian and K2 one-shot comic that tells of how Cassian first reprogrammed him. It's not bad at all, though it's a bit of a reminder that these interesting characters with their own histories got killed. I get why they did it, since it would seem odd that people who had such a great success rate wouldn't be around for future major rebel operations, but it still seems like a bit of a waste. Anyway, as an adaptation, it's pretty damn good. Covers most of the film, adds in stuff that improves upon it, and the stuff that gets cut wasn't too major in the grand scheme of things. As for the movie itself, while it lacks a lot of the more overt character stuff, it excels in other areas. As a sci-fi war movie, it's very good, with a lot of action and interesting action set pieces. One thing this movie gets right that sadly the comic doesn't as well: the gorgeous visuals, especially in showing off how big and terrifying the Death Star is. In my Force Awakens review, I talked about how the movie didn't do enough to really show off how scary Starkiller Base was, but this one gets it. A New Hope said that the Death Star was the size of a small moon, but this film actually has the Death Star right next to a planet to show off its size, even slowly revealing it from the shadows like a monster emerging from the dark, dwarfing the Star Destroyers, which, of course, we see how big even one of those is as it hovers over the city. The Death Star looks scary and imposing, as it should. Even without actually blowing up a planet, it shows why the Alliance is ready to throw in the towel once it's revealed. Hell, we really get a better idea of the destructive power from someone on the ground. Even just the blast of a city is enough to make it look like the world is ending. It's not just the Death Star either. The AT-ATs bearing down on the Rebel attack on Scarif once again show the size and power of the things. It's like the opening shot of A New Hope, that reminder of the size and reach of the Empire, now brought down to a micro level as we see how small the Rebels truly are compared to this massive war machine they fight. Although one thing I don't really like about the movie is the music. Michael Giacchino decided to incorporate a few Star Wars leitmotifs into the film, but then for a lot of recognizable themes, they suddenly zig in ways that make them sound like they were made for a Star Wars ripoff rather than a Star Wars film. He probably wanted to try something different since this was the first non-main series Star Wars movie. I'm not counting the Ewok movies, but I don't think it quite works. However, one fun detail: apparently in the liner notes, he had alternate titles for the soundtrack listings, usually with puns. Stuff like Jincarcerated, Takes One to Rogue One, and Jedha Call Saw. Brilliant. And thus Star Wars Prequel Month finally comes to an end. And after 11 episodes worth of material, I think next week we should try something a bit more challenging.
Jin, I'll be there for you. Cassian said I had to.
Hello, my friends. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, hit the bell, and share it with others. And if you get a chance, maybe check out my Patreon.